Speaking of fertility issues, did you know that as a woman ages, our chances of conceiving a child declines? By the time she turns 30, she will have lost 90% of her eggs, and by age 40, only 3% remains. If you plan to wait a few years before becoming a mom, it pays to begin thinking about your fertility long before you try to conceive. Today on SME Hub, we'll be engaging with a medical professional who will be providing an insightful analysis on the causes of fertility and preventive measures of such. I'm being joined by Victoria Okorie-Duru, fertility scientist, Waka Medics Healthcare Limited. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
Yeah, you're welcome. So now briefly tell us, what's the link or the, let's say the point, between fertility and infertility?
Thank you very much for asking that. My late dad would say something. He said, dying is actually the most difficult thing to happen. At the same time, dying is the easiest thing to happen. So I relate this to fertility and infertility. Fertility, which is the ability for one to conceive and have a child, is the easiest thing to happen because every now and then we hear of young teenagers and young adults aborting children. Fertility is also the most difficult thing to happen because the rate of infertility increases with couples who just got married. So infertility is also difficult to come by, and it's also an easy thing to happen. Now the nexus or the connecting point between these two is that one can be fertile at the same time. Same individual can said to be infertile. That is where we have people with secondary infertility, where they've been able to conceive without issues. Maybe they got married, and after having the first child, they're finding it difficult to have a child. So such individual was fertile like a year or two ago, and that person is infertile. That means parameters can change for this particular person.
So, okay, explain to us the factors of this fertility issues.
Okay, so the factors that affect fertility, I'm going to discuss firstly the factors that affect females, because I'm first a female, and the fact that I also have an experience myself going through infertility. So one of the most common factors, and which every woman out there should know, is once you're facing this, I'm not saying for a fact that once you're facing this you should be concerned. I'm saying for a fact that if you ever have irregularities with your menstrual cycle, you need some help. Yes. So having irregularities with your menstrual cycle is only time that something is not going right in your body, and it's usually the first point of call for us to detect when women present in the facility that they're having irregularities with the menstrual cycle. Another one, which Debbie has earlier mentioned when she was communicating with us, is age. Unlike the males, for females, the number of follicles we have is finite. So that means at 20 weeks of gestation, when I was still in my mother's womb, all the follicles that I'm going to ovulate or menstruate in my lifetime has already been formed. So that means the number of follicles in my body is already formed at 20 weeks. So that means we need to conceive in time, because as the day goes by, as we menstruate and as we ovulate every month, the number of follicles declines. That means as we get older as women, the chances of we to conceive a child also declines. And another one I also mentioned that people do not think it's important, and that's eating deep into our society today, is lifestyle factors. We have lots of females smoking, drinking, taking lots of things, and they are not concerned. But the truth is, it actually affects their system. And for the males, and which this is the point where it comes between females and males, stress affects infertility a whole lot. So the male folks, I know you want to make so much millions, but please listen to me. It's not about making all the money. You just need to also find time to rest, because stress causes release of some hormones that can affect the fertility status.
Now let's look at the current state of infertility in Nigeria. You mentioned something about primary, and I don't even mention primary and secondary infertility. Now, can you break it down for us? What are the types in both the primary and the secondary?
Okay, so generally, for anyone to understand, you just have to know that if you want to conceive, for instance, you got married today and you have regular and unprotected sex with your spouse, emphasis on regular and unprotected. Regular being that you meet about 3 times in a week, and unprotected for a whole year, and nothing happens, you're not able to conceive. That's a case of primary infertility. it could be the male factor or female factor, but in that couple they are diagnosed with primary infertility. But for secondary, that means either the man or the woman have had child before, or the man has been able to impregnate a woman in the past, or the woman have been able to conceive. So that's the difference.
All right. So why do you think fertility rate in Nigeria is so high? Because I don't want to make emphasis on, I think PCOS is like the order of the day. I don't want to make emphasis on that, but it is high. You know, people actually like come out now and like talk about it all the time. So why do you think it's actually so high?
Okay, so when you talk about fertility and infertility, why it's common in our time compared to the previous time, because in the past most of our parents could, you know, just conceive it. You don't hear things about it. It's because of the kind of lifestyle we engage ourselves in. And then secondly, I know a lot of people might not think this actually affects our fertility, but it does, and that's the economy. So the economy generally affects our fertility status, because a young girl growing up knowing that she has her fertile days, like in her 20s, early 20s, she can get pregnant and have children. She's thinking about how to make more money, how to make more income for the family, because lots of young girls these days are taking care of their families. Then when you talk about the male, he wants to make so much money before he also gets married. So that means because we are busy chasing money or trying to improve our finances, we get married later than usual. And because we get married later than usual, if there are cases or some conditions that would have been detected earlier to be detected late, and before this will be sorted out, you realize that.
All right, let's move away from the whole fertility and infertility. Now, you found yourself in this field. What are the challenges you can actually say, you know, you've seen over time?
Naturally, I'm a very emotional person.
Okay.
So I think 1 year ago, I sat and I told my husband, "Are you sure I'm really in the right profession?" Because I come back, I'm thinking about people's problems. It's more like I'm burdened. Every day I'm praying. Normally I love praying for people, but I'm carrying lots of burden on my shoulders. You see people crying before you, people in their 40s, in their 50s, especially the males, because people don't know, but we have so many males out there that have azoospermia. That is a condition where the man has 0 sperm count, and you're looking at them and they've been told that they can never father a child. And such things actually affect them mentally. So I think one of the challenges, or the major one I go through, is the fact that I have to keep listening to people's problems often. And then secondly, I think the cost of fertility treatment in Nigeria and all over the world is expensive. So you're telling a patient, okay, you need to do this screening, and when they go through some medications, they're coming back to repeat same tests, and fertility tests and treatment are not cheap. So the cost for it is difficult for the client, that sometimes it looks like you don't want to help. They look at it like you don't want to help, but truly you want to help, but you can't do anything about it because the cost of these tests should be expensive.
So apart from that, what steps have you taken to, like, you know, help in this, you know, whole situation? Like you said, you mentioned about the emotional power where people come to you. So what step have you taken to, you know, make the situation look, you know, very simple? Or how do you relate to your clients? How do you provide solutions to them?
Okay, so one of the things we've done at Wakamedis is the fact that we've been able to partner with some organizations to support. So in November last year and March this year, we were able to subsidize the cost for fertility screening for them. And another thing I've also taken up myself is using my social media, because people come to tell you lots of problems, and maybe they discover the problem, they discover that they have a solution. For example, there's a spermia patient, so there is a solution for them. We can do sperm retrieve and then they have their children, but most of them do not know about this. So what we've taken upon ourselves is to educate people. So I use my social media platform together with my team. We'll send the information out there, so that once you get to hear about it in time, you take steps early enough, and you don't just stay crying that you can't conceive.
So what about the younger girls who actually like live a clean life, clean lifestyle, and then they're faced with this issue? What would you say, you know, is the underlying factor that's actually the cause of that?
Okay, I was going to mention this earlier, but it skipped my mind. Thank you for bringing my attention to this. So genetics can also play a role in cases of infertility. Genetics can play a huge role, and they can have some underlying diseases like untreated sexual transmitted infection can cause pelvic inflammatory disease, which in some cases can cause scarring of the fallopian tube. So this is one case amongst many. Some women are also diagnosed with very common or polycystic ovarian syndrome, and they didn't do anything for that. So for younger girls, I tell you, your chances are high, because no matter what the diagnosis, there are options for you. So the first thing and the best thing for them to do is to seek medical help. Stop trying to Google your symptoms alone and trying to get some vendors on Instagram to sell lots of things. What they don't know is getting prescription online of all these herbal medications can actually cause harm to their liver and their kidneys. So the best thing for them to do is, if you've tried to have sex with your husband for 1 year, regular, as I said before, and pregnancy, it's not happening, please seek medical help. A common hormonal profile can actually give a pointer to what the problem is.
What words do you have for the men and women who actually face these challenges?
Because I've been there and because I understand, today is actually a memorable day in my life, because when I noticed the center was scheduled for today, I realized that personally I went through infertility. And one of the things my father actually wanted was, he wanted me to expand in my profession. And I'm here, and today makes it exactly 4 years since he passed on, and I'm happy I'm doing this. So for everyone out there going through fertility issues, you're not alone. I've been there before. I waited for a couple of years and I have my child, and I'm telling you, you too can have your child. It's easier now because there are lots of options for you. Even though time intercourse is not working, there's IUI, there's IVF, there's ICSI, there's so many procedures for you. Please seek medical help. Don't stay on your own and keep thinking that this would not work. I've given up, there is no other option. There is an option if you're well profiled. So I say fertility treatment starts with right fertility profiling and diagnosis. Thank you.